Yes, I am wearing sunglasses inside. What about it? I have under eye bags that I don't want you guys to see. So that's why. Money can't buy happiness. That is a very common, and some might even say overused saying to portray the idea that money is not everything. However, there are many people who don't agree with this saying, and the very common rebuttal to this is money can buy things that make me happy. You can get yourself a new car, a mansion, an expensive bag, and all the good stuff that kids go for nowadays. And I've been doing some puzzling till my puzzler was sore. And I'm starting to realize that comeback doesn't really make a lot of sense. At its core, you're saying that money can make you happy because of its after effects of buying something. So ultimately, it's the happiness you get from receiving an item instead of the actual money itself. With that logic, you can technically argue that something like a walk in the park can buy you happiness, or just make you happy, or seeing a favorite family member after a long time of not seeing them, even receiving a compliment from a stranger. All of these things which are completely free from monetary affiliation. Speaking about free, getting things for free can also make you happy. I remember I was scrolling on Pinterest and a post came up about Bungo Stray Dogs. It's an anime and manga series, if you don't know. One of my favorites of all time. And the caption for or whatever was like, oh, people say money can't buy happiness. So what's all this? Did I get all this for free? If somebody gave you all those mangas for free, wouldn't that feel even better than having to pay for it? So essentially, it's the idea of you receiving something that is making you happy, not necessarily money. But saying that money can make you happy is just another way of recognizing the gratification you get from receiving an item and wanting to replicate that behavior to replicate that feeling. Hence the reason that overconsumption and constant buying becomes a thing. It's that exact mindset that causes these constant behaviors. Money can buy this knick-knack off of Temu and make me happy. And because it happened last time, it can happen again if I do it again. And all that's giving you is a band-aid fix. It's more like, ooh, a shiny new toy. I'm happy for like 5 seconds and then I'm miserable again and then I want a new shiny toy. This is why people are resorting to buying grotesque amounts of things at one time over an extended period of time. Because money, or the act of using money to buy materialistic things, isn't enough to satiate the desire to feel happy. Because when we really get down to it, what is happiness? Sure, it's the feeling you get when you buy a new manga or when you get something off of Temu, like we mentioned before. But as I said earlier, those are just band-aid temporary fixes. Otherwise, people wouldn't feel the need to go running to the store for the next new biggest trend just to feel happy and use the materialistic items to form a personality. I'm talking about happiness in its philosophical state, beyond the simplistic shackles of science, beyond the obvious of dopamine and neurotransmitters and hormones. I'm talking about the actualization of oneself, purpose, fulfillment, accomplishment, hope. All of these things in the grand scheme of things are things that people would consider to be happiness, and not the fleeting feeling of buying something from TikTok shop that will inevitably need to be replaced. And I want to make it very clear, I am not against shopping or buying what you want to make you happy. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't think it's a crime to just have fun and buy things that you want occasionally, but I'm specifically talking about this overconsumption issue that we're having, people feeling the need to buy a bunch of stuff. It's more so that aspect of it, that the saying of money can buy things that make me happy, which has some truth to it, but an underlying issue that needs to be resolved. So then the question is, can money actually buy those things? Hope, fulfillment, purpose? And the answer is that it kind of depends. I think the biggest issue is seeing happiness as something that can be bought in the first place. I think the way that we're talking about it is very misleading because it makes it seem like happiness is something that is a constant state when it's not. Happiness and despair are varying states of beings caused by external environmental factors and internal factors, but one doesn't stay happy or sad forever. I know it can feel that way, especially towards the end of despair and constantly feeling sad, but that's mainly because humans are very biased towards negative emotions. But if happiness and sadness are not constant states, that means that it can't be controlled with something as simple as money, at least not in the long term. All you're going to get are these temporary band-aid fixes. But for the abstract of happiness, it's much bigger than that. And this is actually something that I realized around my 17th birthday. I forgot to mention that I actually did kind of have this conversation before in one of my much earlier videos, but there were some new epiphanies, if you will, that I had about it. So I figured I'd bring it back up and talk about it again, but I did tell this story. But around my 17th birthday, we had gotten a pretty large lump sum of money. So my parents were nice enough to treat me and also just the family to going to LA for the very first time. They got us into this really nice Airbnb. I think it was like an Airbnb and a hotel. I have no idea what it was, but it was a really nice spot. We got to go to the city of LA. I got to do a bunch of shopping for some really nice clothes. It was a really nice experience, and they were able to give me a lot of materialistic things. By the end of the day, I still felt hollow and miserable. And the reason for this is because as I was getting older, I still felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. I mean, I was 17, I was going to be 18, a legal adult soon. I'm about to graduate from high school, and I feel like I have nothing going for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to go to college. I didn't have a lot of good social relationships, but I did not have a lot of hope for my future, and I was lacking a lot of important connections. I actually remember waking up that morning and just staring at the ceiling, being like, oh, it's my birthday. There goes another year. I was really, really discouraged. And I actually ended up feeling really bad the day after my birthday because I was like, why am I sad? Like, they gave me all this stuff. They brought me to a whole new state. I got to buy a bunch of cute clothes that I wanted. Why am I still sad? I felt like I was being ungrateful because I was still having these hollow feelings, even though my parents gave me all of this really cool, nice materialistic stuff. And it's not that I was being ungrateful. I really appreciated everything that my parents, my family did for me that day, but it's more so that I couldn't appreciate it because that was not my biggest problem at the time. And you'll see this a lot of times, people who have money, but sometimes they still go off about how their mental state is not great or how they feel just hollow and empty. And a lot of times people will come at them and be like, I wish I had $1 billion to worry about, or say something like that. And it's like, to a certain degree, depending on what you're complaining about, if you're financially stable, it does come off as wrong. Like if you wanted a red Lamborghini and all they had was blue, and you go on like TikTok whining about that, yeah, that's completely out of touch. But the real feeling and understanding that these materialistic items that I was getting was not fulfilling my happiness is a valid feeling. Because guess what? Money was not my biggest stressor at the time. It was purpose, it was a lack of motivation, and money can't buy those things. When you try to throw money at an issue that doesn't require materialistic things, you're not going to solve the problem. Everybody has different stressors at different points in their lives that needs to be dealt with differently. This is the thing that a lot of people don't seem to understand. They think that when you have $1 million, you're just set. Everything in your life will be fine. That is a naive way to think. If you just lost one of your closest family members or friends, your biggest stressor is going to be how to cope with that grief. If you're feeling lonely in your life, your biggest stressor is going to be finding a community and relationships. If you feel pessimistic about your future and you feel like you don't know what you want to do with it, your biggest stressor is purpose and passion to pursue. And if you're having a hard time putting food on the table, your biggest stressor is financial stability. So you have to pinpoint your stressor and find a solution to that specific problem. And like I said, don't get me wrong, money is great. Buying things is great. There is nothing wrong with wanting to buy something nice for yourself or buy something nice for other people. As somebody whose love language is gift giving, I'm completely fine with treating yourselves to materialistic items. Vacations and buying luxury things are always nice things to have, and building wealth to be able to do those things is a completely valid goal. It's something that I'm working on right now because I would like to treat my family to those things. But even so, at some point you're going to recognize the fact that it cannot fix everything. Sure, it can fix most of your financial problems, but it isn't going to fix everything. And Christmas time is the perfect time to recognize this. Don't you notice that as you get older, the lists get a little bit smaller? Somebody asks what you want for Christmas and you just shrug, like, oh, I don't know. That's literally what I've been getting all week from my family. Like, hey, what do you want? I'm asking all my siblings. I'm asking my mom. I'm asking my sister and everything. They're just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Just find something. Before it was easy. It was cars and Barbies and the newest toy that they advertise on TV. And now it's just like, I don't know, some mental stability, a social life, a will to live. It gets harder because you realize that Barbies and cars alone cannot fulfill you. It cannot give you hope and purpose. It takes a little bit more than that. I'm not at all against anybody grinding for money. If that is one of your biggest stresses in life, then absolutely try to build that wealth. Try to get yourself out of that hole. Especially in this economy right now, it does get very hard. But just please remember that amidst your journey for making money, there are going to be other stressors that come in your life that throwing money at it is not going to fix. Because you can buy yourself the big mansion that you've always wanted, but there are going to be nights where you're having a mental breakdown in that huge mansion. Sure, treat yourself to the cool knick-knacks you see on the internet and the fancy restaurants that you see people promoting. But you cannot rely on materialistic things to give you a fulfilling sense of happiness. You're just coping. It's just giving your brain the chemicals it needs to be happy for 5 minutes, and then you're going back to being miserable. It's that mindset that has people buying more than what they need in order to try to fill a void. This is also another very possible reason of why overconsumption is getting so bad. They're losing a sense of self. They're losing a sense of community and unity. Relationships are harder at all levels, platonic and romantic. People can't put food on the table. People can't trust the government. There is a lot of pessimism and a low that we are all in right now, that pit of despair that I was talking about. And people are trying to fill that with materialistic items, quick dopamine hits, just, ooh, this thing on TikTok shop, I'll buy this. I can buy things that make me happy. Yes, you're right, you can buy things that make you happy. but are you actually happy? If you keep having to buy these things to make you happy, are you truly happy at your core? You can't find your happiness through the stuff that money gets you. You have to find it in the grand scheme of life, and you have to figure out what that stressor is that's stopping you from getting there. So you can get from down here to up here. You're gonna get back down here again. But the point of life is to go through that cycle, not to buy a bunch of things that only last you like a week, give you a short boost of happiness, and won't actually fix the problem. So I implore you, before you go running to TikTok Shop, Temu, Shein, or in the stores and fighting people over Hello Kitty plushies, I want you to sit back and I want you to think to yourself, why do I truly want these things? Is it really making me happy? And what can I do to achieve true happiness?